Most people think a bigger fire automatically means a warmer night outdoors. That instinct makes sense. Pile on more wood, build it higher, stay warmer. But combustion physics says something completely different, and tonight we're proving it. We're breaking down the combustion efficiency collapse and the radiant heat geometry problem. We're covering the airflow physics that turns a small fire into a combustion engine. We're covering the underground fire structure military survival schools have used for decades. By the end of this video, you'll never waste wood building a bonfire again. Here's the credibility signal before we get into the science. The Army Survival Manual, Field Manual 3-76, instructs soldiers to build small, concentrated fires rather than large ones. The reason isn't just stealth. It's the physics we're about to break down. This knowledge has been sitting in military doctrine for decades, while almost nobody outside survival training ever heard it explained. Number one is the combustion efficiency collapse, and this is the core problem with every large fire. When wood burns, it releases its energy in three overlapping stages that build on each other. The first stage is moisture evaporation. The wood sheds its water content before anything else can happen. That evaporation process absorbs energy from the fire rather than contributing to it. The second stage is pyrolysis, where intense heat breaks down the wood's cellulose into combustible gases. Those gases include methane, hydrogen, and carbon monoxide, the actual fuel that burns. The third stage is gas phase combustion, where pyrolysis gases react with oxygen to release heat and light. That third stage is where almost all the usable energy in your fire lives. Here's the problem that grows worse the larger your fire gets. A large bonfire generates so much heat at the core that outer fuel layers never reach proper pyrolysis temperature uniformly. You end up with a fire burning inefficiently at its edges, smoldering and releasing smoke rather than fully combusting. That smoke isn't just inconvenient, it's unburned chemical energy leaving your fire as waste. Every plume of smoke is fuel that should have become heat, but didn't make it. A small, tightly packed fire forces every piece of fuel into the optimal combustion zone at the same time. Efficiency in a large open fire runs between 40 and 60%. In a compact, well-oxygenated small fire, it climbs to 80 or 90%. You're not burning less fuel. You're combusting the same fuel far more completely. At 90% efficiency, a small fire delivers nearly twice the usable heat per log as a bonfire burning at 50%. That isn't a marginal gain. That's the difference between staying warm and shivering through till sunrise. Now you're probably thinking a bigger fire still puts out more total heat because it has more fuel. Here's where the geometry problem completely destroys that assumption. Number two is the radiant heat geometry problem, and this is the physics most survival guides completely ignore. Heat from a fire reaches your body in two ways: convection and radiation. Convection is hot air rising and moving past you as the fire heats the surrounding atmosphere. Radiation is infrared energy traveling in a straight line from the fire's surface directly to your skin. Convective heat is nearly useless for warming a person because hot air rises away from you. Unless you're sitting directly above the fire, convection does almost nothing. Radiant heat is what you actually feel when you sit near a campfire, and it obeys the inverse square law. The inverse square law is one of the most important physics principles you can apply to survival. Double your distance from a radiant heat source, and the intensity you receive drops to 1/4, not 1/2, and not somewhere in between. 1/4 exactly. Every extra foot you step back from a fire costs you dramatically more warmth than it seems. The relationship is non-linear, and it works against you every time you build a fire too large to approach closely. Here's what that means for your bonfire specifically and why it matters. A bonfire is physically large, which means you can't get close without being overwhelmed by heat. The size of the structure itself blocks you from approaching. That forced distance is destroying your heat transfer faster than anything else about your setup. A small, intense fire lets you sit within 18 to 24 inches of the flame. At 18 inches, a fire producing far less total energy still delivers more radiant warmth to your body. A bonfire 10 feet away simply can't compete at that math. Picture a small fire generating half the total thermal energy of a bonfire. If you're at 2 feet instead of 8 feet away, you're receiving roughly 16 times more radiant intensity on your body, 16 times more effective warmth from the smaller fire. That's the inverse square law working against every person who ever built a bonfire thinking bigger automatically means warmer. Before we get to the fire structure that maximizes this effect, here's a quick physics question for the quiz below. A campfire produces a fixed amount of radiant heat energy. If you move from 4 feet away down to 2 feet away, how does the radiant intensity reaching your body change? Is it option A, you receive twice the heat? Option B, you receive 3 times the original heat intensity? Option C, you receive 4 times the original heat intensity. Or option D, the heat reaching you stays the same. Drop your answer in the quiz below, and we'll come back to this. Number 3 is the airflow geometry that turns a small fire into a combustion engine. The single biggest variable controlling fire heat output isn't how much fuel you use. It's how consistently and precisely oxygen reaches the active combustion zone. Combustion is a chemical reaction between fuel gases and oxygen, and every chemical reaction is rate limited by the scarcest ingredient available. Restrict oxygen delivery and you get incomplete combustion, lower temperatures, and wasted fuel. Control oxygen delivery and the fire reaches its maximum theoretical heat output instead. A large open bonfire pulls air in from all sides at ground level simultaneously. But the fire's own heat creates turbulent airflow that cycles unpredictably across the fuel. Pockets of oxygen-rich and oxygen-poor zones shift constantly through the structure, so some sections burn well while others smolder uselessly. The fire fights against its own airflow chaos and never reaches peak combustion temperature uniformly. Building a fire with a structured intake channel creates a pressure differential inside the combustion zone. That pressure differential pulls fresh oxygen directly to the hottest part of the fire in one controlled, directed stream. The fire stops breathing in chaotic random gulps and starts drawing air in one continuous flow instead. The difference in combustion temperature is measurable and significant. This is the operating principle behind the Dakota fire hole, the most thermodynamically efficient campfire design in survival literature. Here's exactly how you build one out in the field. You dig 2 connected underground chambers about 18 inches apart from each other. The first is the main combustion bowl, about the size of a basketball, roughly 12 inches deep. The second is a narrower intake tunnel, angled upward from the ground surface down to the base of the main combustion bowl. That intake tunnel is where the physics gets interesting and powerful. As the fire burns and hot gases rise out the top, a low-pressure zone forms at the base of the combustion chamber. That low pressure is the mechanism that drives everything. The intake tunnel feeds cold surface air directly into that low-pressure zone, creating a continuous Venturi effect automatically. The fire becomes a self-sustaining oxygen delivery system that needs no adjustment once it's burning. The result is a fire burning at significantly higher core temperatures on significantly less fuel than any open surface fire. Military survival schools teach the Dakota hole for 2 distinct reasons. It's nearly invisible from any horizontal direction because most of the fire is below ground level, and it generates more usable heat per unit of fuel than any other design. A fire the size of your head in a Dakota hole outperforms a bonfire made from 20 times the wood. Directed combustion is that much more efficient than a chaotic open fire. The thermodynamics of directed combustion make that a physical certainty. Number 4 is the surface area to flame ratio, and this explains why fire shape matters as much as fire size. Combustion happens at the boundary where hot fuel gases contact available oxygen. That boundary is called the reaction interface. The rate of energy release is directly proportional to the total active surface area of that reaction interface. More combustion surface equals more energy per second, regardless of how much raw fuel is present. A large bonfire has high total surface area at its perimeter, but the interior becomes oxygen-starved as the structure scales up. The wood at the center is surrounded by intense heat but cut off from the oxygen it needs to combust fully. You're paying in fuel for wood that gets thermally degraded without fully releasing its stored energy. A Tipi fire arranges fuel in a cone shape with the apex pointing upward. Every piece of fuel faces the hot core and the oxygen supply simultaneously. This maximizes the active combustion surface area relative to the total fuel volume in the structure. There's no oxygen-starved interior because the cone geometry allows airflow to reach every piece from the base upward. The entire structure burns uniformly and simultaneously from first ignition all the way down to ash. The Tipi geometry also focuses radiant heat output toward a single outward arc rather than dispersing it equally in every direction. A flat fire sends heat upward into the sky and downward into the ground. Heat goes sideways away from the person who needs it most. The Tipi geometry redirects all of that wasted energy toward you instead. The Tipi concentrates that same total energy output toward the narrower arc in front of the fire, directly toward where you're positioned. You capture a larger fraction of the fire's total radiant output just by changing the geometry of the fuel arrangement. Number 5 is the fuel-to-heat conversion math that makes the case impossible to argue with. Dry hardwood stores enough chemical energy per kilogram to boil roughly 40 liters of water from room temperature. That number is fixed by chemistry. The wood holds what it holds regardless of how you burn it. What changes completely is how much of that stored energy actually becomes useful radiant heat aimed at your body. The rest is lost to incomplete combustion, smoke, and convective heat rising straight up into the sky. The remaining fraction is radiation dispersing in directions where nobody is sitting. A large bonfire burning 10 kilograms of wood at 50% efficiency releases an enormous amount of thermal energy in total. But the inverse square law, wide radiant geometry, and convective losses combine against you in a large fire. The fraction of total output actually reaching a nearby person runs under 5%. The bonfire is enormous, impressive, and mostly warming the sky directly above your campsite. A compact Tipi or Dakota whole fire burning 2 kilograms at 85% efficiency behaves completely differently. You're sitting close, the radiant geometry is focused in your direction, and convective losses are minimized by the structure. The fraction of that fire's energy actually reaching your body runs 15 to 20% instead. That's 3 to 4 times the delivery 50 fuel on 1/5 the fuel. The small fire delivers more warmth to your body per log burned. The thermodynamics are measurable and consistent at every stage of the calculation. Here's the second quiz question for the quiz below. Which fire structure forces oxygen to feed the base of the combustion zone through a pressure differential? Is it option A, the Tipi fire structure? Option B, the traditional log cabin fire structure? Option C, the underground Dakota fire hole design? Or option D, the classic star fire layout? Lock in your answer using the quiz below right now. Number 6 is the wind and placement factor, and it's the final piece most people completely overlook. Wind interacts with a large open bonfire in a destructive and consistent way. Strong airflow across the top of a large fire disrupts the combustion plume entirely. Cold spots form on the windward face where unburned fuel gets exposed to cool air. Unburned fuel on the windward side gets exposed to cool air before it can fully combust. A bonfire in wind is a constantly destabilized combustion system that you have no meaningful control over. A Dakota whole fire is nearly immune to strong wind effects because the combustion chamber sits completely underground. Surface airflow simply can't reach the underground combustion zone at all. The intake tunnel actually converts wind from an enemy into a performance advantage. When the intake faces into the prevailing wind pressure increases the air delivery to the combustion zone directly. The same environmental condition that weakens a bonfire actually makes a Dakota hole burn hotter. That's the physics of directed airflow working exactly as it was designed to work. Placement also matters because of the same radiant physics we covered in Section 2. Positioning a small fire in front of a reflective surface bounces radiant heat back toward you from a second direction. A rock face, a fallen log, or a packed snow wall all work for this. You're capturing radiant energy from both the fire and the reflected surface simultaneously. You're capturing radiant energy from both the fire and the reflected surface on the same fuel load. A bonfire is too large and too far away to benefit meaningfully from reflective positioning. A compact fire placed correctly delivers heat from 2 angles at once, and you feel the difference immediately. That combination of physics explains why a fire you could carry beats a fire you could park beside. Higher combustion efficiency, inverse square proximity gains, and focused geometry all stack together. Higher combustion efficiency, inverse square proximity gains, focused radiant geometry, directed oxygen delivery, and wind immunity all compound together. Every thermodynamic metric favors the small fire built with intention. There is survival knowledge that holds up in a physics textbook. There's also survival knowledge that holds up at 2 in the morning in freezing temperatures with a dwindling wood supply. The rarest thing in this field is when both versions give you the exact same answer. The rarest thing in this field is when both versions give you the exact same answer. And with fire, they do. Now you know exactly why a compact fire beats a bonfire on every thermodynamic measure that matters for survival. But warmth from a fire is only half of the cold weather equation. The other half is what your body does with that heat once it has it. Most people are bleeding warmth through their sleeping setup without knowing it, and no fire can overcome that loss fast enough. That's exactly what the next video breaks down in detail.